Promoting positive behavior in schools. This is all staff seclusion and restraint training. This training will provide benefits of positive behavioral supports and interventions, school-wide positive behavior systems, behavior management strategies, and effective strategies for responding to problem behavior. Effective positive behavioral intervention and support systems increase student engagement and instructional time, which create climates that encourage college and career readiness for all students. The primary goal of this training is to help schools minimize or prevent the need for physical restraint and seclusion by doing the following: creating climates and plans that predict and minimize disruptive behavior school-wide and for individual students, implementing interventions and supports that will decrease or eliminate difficult and dangerous student behavior. On February 1, 2013, 704 KAR 7:160, the use of physical restraint and seclusion in public schools was enacted. All Kentucky certified and non-certified school personnel are now required to have annual training in the use of positive behavioral supports and interventions. The benefits of a positive approach are: the most effective way to prevent, decrease, or eliminate problem student behavior is to implement positive instructional discipline strategies and systems in our schools. These approaches are the only evidence-based solution for preventing and responding to problem behavior, creating schools where teaching and learning can flourish. Schools which have implemented school-wide positive behavior instructional systems provide students with a safe and engaging atmosphere where more time is spent teaching and learning and less time dealing with negative behaviors. They report dramatic reductions in repeated office referrals and suspensions, as well as incidents of seclusion and physical restraint. There are 4 key principles of positive behavior intervention programs common to all schools: predicting problem behavior, preventing problem behavior, maintaining consistency, and monitoring the program. A school-wide approach to positive behavioral interventions and supports may be the most effective way to improve student achievement and behavior. An effective school-wide system identifies needs, develops strategies, and evaluates practices toward success. Elements of positive behavioral interventions and supports include the following: teaching and reinforcing appropriate behavior so that everyone, the adults and the students, are engaging in instruction and prevention, following consistent plans when responding to problem behavior, using data to guide decision making, reinforces students for following the behavior expectations. A multi-tiered positive behavior support system has the following characteristics: addresses the social and emotional needs of all students, predicts potential behavior problems, creates plans to avoid potential behavior problems, establishes clear and consistent expectations, establishes clear and consistent consequences, focuses on intervention planning and prevention, creates a positive learning climate, teaches and regularly reinforces the expectations of students. A multi-tiered system provides the supports necessary for all students to be successful. When teachers are asked to make modifications in how they address an individual student's behavior, it is not uncommon to hear, "Why do I have to change for this student? If I do this for him, I'll have to do it for others. It's not fair to the other students." The reality is that it has nothing to do with the other students, but with the responsibility to support a student's success. It very well could result in less disruption in the classroom, which would also benefit other students. One key element that affects student behavior is adult behavior. Adults can provide positive learning opportunities through the physical layout of the classroom, the way they teach, and the way they manage and respond to student behavior. Adults should be aware how their actions affect students. Often the initial reaction by adults to problem behavior is with negativity and punishment. There is no research that supports punitive measures alone as effective in changing behavior. In fact, most successful intervention creates more positive than negative consequences. If you want the student to change behavior, focus on changing adult behavior. Move from focusing solely on reactive responses of trying to control student behavior to a proactive approach, and strive for a 4-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. An inviting climate for students begins with building positive relationships between the adults and the students. Adults have a greater responsibility in determining the quality of interactions with students. Relationship building begins with the teacher standing in the door and greeting students as they enter the classroom. Positive interactions that are quick yet very effective in relationship building include the following: showing a genuine interest in students, providing age-appropriate feedback in a non-embarrassing way, treating students with respect by using simple courtesies such as saying thank you and please. Remember the 4-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. Reinforcing students for desirable behavior increases the probability that the desired behavior will occur again in the future. You can reinforce students' behavior through verbal praise, public acknowledgement, privileges, and token or merit systems. Always provide students with a reminder before correction. Be consistent with your routine and system, and ensure that students know what to expect when they behave and when they exhibit problem behavior. No consequence should come as a surprise. It is important when dealing with problem behavior that you remove emotion from your response. Student behavior is not about you. By establishing and discussing consequences with students before, instead of when trouble is happening, you can improve your ability to deliver consequences in a calm, rational manner. Here are some general things you should keep in mind. Acknowledge appropriate behavior displayed by students. Speak privately to the student exhibiting problem behavior. Identify the problem without emotion, and present options. Schedules and routines. One of the easiest and simplest things adults can do to increase the likelihood of student success is to inform students what they expect throughout the day. Start by having consistent schedules. Giving students a schedule helps decrease predictable behavior problems by letting them know ahead of time what to expect throughout the day. Schedules should provide the following: expectations for arrival times, a sequence and planned duration of activities, a routine for cleanup and transitions between activities, explanations for any schedule changes. Additionally, all procedures are taught and practiced and feedback is given. Transitions between activities are smooth and without confusion. Transition in and out of the classroom are clearly defined and practiced. The physical arrangement. Adjusting the physical arrangement of a classroom can increase the likelihood of student success. Characteristics of well-designed classrooms include the following: clear expectations are communicated regarding acceptable behavior. Expectations regarding behavior are posted clearly. Transitions between activities that are smooth and without confusion. Transitions in and out of the classroom that are clearly defined and practiced. Students see the teacher and the teacher sees the students at all times. Teacher proximity. One element that can have a dramatic impact on student behavior is the proximity of the teacher or the other responsible adult. These individuals should move about the classroom frequently and maintain close proximity to all students. Adults may hover near a particular student or area where you think behavior problems may occur. In school settings, we know what we don't want students to do and are quick to punish in an effort to stop problem behavior. Focusing on punishing without a proactive support system may be associated with increases in negative behaviors. The adults must decide what behaviors are expected, teach the expectations, provide constant reminders, and provide reinforcement. You wouldn't expect students to stumble upon the right way to perform an academic skill. The same applies to social behavior. Actively teach, remind, and reinforce the desired behavior. There are several specific teacher actions that are common in positive classrooms: providing clearly specified goals and objectives, engaging students throughout the lesson, providing high levels of feedback, verbal prompts along with physical demonstration, and natural models. Behavior momentum is a strategy for increasing the likelihood of appropriate behavior by asking a student to do 2 or 3 things they typically want to do, and then following up with a request for a behavior the student typically does not want to do. This strategy builds momentum toward appropriate behavior. Providing students choices is another simple but effective strategy that allows students to participate in the decision-making process. Providing students with choices increases the likelihood they will make better behavioral decisions. Keeping students focused and engaged during instructional time is another effective strategy for minimizing problem behavior. Providing opportunities for students to respond is a way to increase student engagement. Strategies may include asking questions, promote group or individual responses, or decide whether to ask closed or open-ended questions. Request for student behavior. Raise hand to indicate agreement. Create and share, demonstrate, or tell a relevant story. Prompts and cues are very effective instructional strategies. Prompting students, especially when they are acquiring new skills and have yet to reach fluency, can be very effective in promoting appropriate student behavior. Strategies may include the following: verbal prompts. Make clear statements that act as reminders. Deliver in contexts where failure is likely. Use the slightest prompt necessary to facilitate success. Remember to raise your hand. Pre-correction. Teacher asks a clear question that acts as a reminder. Student is required to respond. Teacher then praises or corrects the student's response. Teacher: what will you do if you need my help? Student: raise my hand. Teacher: exactly. Good for you. Effective strategies for responding to problem behavior. These are 4 quotes that will assist you in responding to problem behavior. You must first seek to understand before you seek to be understood. Stephen Covey. The same part of the brain controls fear and anger. Anger is a secondary emotion that is dependent upon the presence of fear. If we learn to handle or cope with the fear, anger can be stopped. Increased fear leads to increased anger. There is no cure-all for angry behavior. There is no point chart, no behavior modification program, no intervention that will make anger go away. There is only a child and hopefully an adult who cares. Malcolm Smith. Angry children are children who are very afraid. Violent children are children who are scared, angry children. Also, Malcolm Smith. There are three types of anger: expressive, passive, and implosive. Students who manifest expressive anger are often overt with their actions, wanting adults to know about their anger. They don't seem to care about the consequences. Expressive anger is easy to recognize. It often occurs in short periods and is not well thought out. The responsibility of the adults is to help them express what is causing the anger and to help them find appropriate ways to express anger. Students who manifest passive anger appear to be sneaky and avoiding consequences. Passive anger is carefully plotted. Students displaying passive anger don't usually admit they are angry. They may be in control of their emotions and behavior. Their anger may come out in devious and anonymous acts. Students who manifest implosive anger have buried their anger under a layer of emotions. The anger is often so painful that they may hurt themselves or others rather than face it. These students may turn to drug abuse or eat or starve the anger away. These students are at a greater risk for suicide. The student may be inconsistent. Their behavior is dictated by out-of-control emotions. The escalation cycle. The outcome of any situation with an angry person will depend on your behavior, not the other person's behavior. This is a quote from Malcolm Smith. Reactive approaches, such as punishment, that follow problem behavior are time-consuming and fail to teach acceptable replacement behaviors. These approaches may also inadvertently reinforce the undesired behavior. Adult responses to student problem behavior may actually cause negative behavior to escalate. Before we look at specific ways you can de-escalate the behavior of a student in crisis, let's take a look at the basic model of the escalation cycle and the continuum of behavioral interventions for managing the cycle of acting out behavior in the classroom by Jeff Colvin. The escalation cycle. The outcome of any situation with an angry person will depend on your behavior, not the other person's behavior. Adult responses to student problem behavior may actually cause negative behavior to escalate. Before we can look at specific ways you can de-escalate the behavior of a student in crisis, let's take a look at the basic model of the escalation cycle and the continuum of behavioral interventions for managing the cycle of acting out behavior in the classroom by Jeff Colvin. The first stage is the calm stage. During the calm stage, the student is cooperative, the student follows rules, is on task, and exhibits socially appropriate behaviors. In this phase, students accept corrective feedback and follow directions. The focus in this phase is prevention. This is the time to teach expectations, social skills, and as appropriate, relaxation techniques. Students can set personal goals for their behavior, and you should be providing a lot of positive reinforcement. Next is the trigger stage. At the trigger stage, something occurs that upsets the student. The trigger stage often includes several unresolved conflicts, such as repeated failures, frequent corrections, interpersonal conflicts, and inconsistent or infrequent positive reinforcement. Intervention in this phase is focused on prevention and redirection. When planning your response, consider the function of the behavior. Does the student want to gain something or avoid something? Remove or modify the context of the situation as much as possible, and think of how you can prepare the student for quick success and immediate positive reinforcement. During the agitation stage, the student's behavior becomes unfocused. The student is off task, perhaps withdrawing socially, talking with others, and/or out of his or her seat. Intervention at this point is focused on reducing anxiety. Again, consider the function of the problem behavior and make any environmental changes you can. Provide the student with choices. Consider giving a non-academic task. Find quick opportunities to provide positive feedback. During the acceleration or peak stage, the student's behavior becomes more focused, provocative, and may be threatening. When this stage is reached, the escalation cycle will likely run its course. The student is unable to think rationally or to exhibit self-control. Behavior is at high intensity at this point, and intervention is focused on the safety of the student and others. You should disengage from the student, avoid continuing to correct or give directions, be calm and respectful, and detach. During this phase, follow your school's crisis prevention procedures. At the peak stage, the student's behavior is most severe and may include destruction of property, physical aggression, or injury to self or others. At this stage, you should focus on safety and following a crisis plan. Keys to avoid escalating behaviors are appropriately intervene early, manipulate the environmental factors, and identify replacement behaviors that can be taught. The following nonverbal strategies may be used to de-escalate acting out behavior. Acknowledge the student's feelings. Remove the student from behavioral triggers. Avoid getting into a power struggle with the student. Verbal de-escalation is the process used to calm an agitated student by using communication, listening, and body language. When a student becomes agitated, provide the student with your undivided attention. Maintain eye contact with the student. Focus on feelings and engage the student in positive self-talk. Monitor your body language. Avoid gestures that appear judgmental or non-supportive, and avoid power struggles with students. If you inadvertently assist the student to escalate, do not be concerned. You will get another chance to do it right the next time. Enacted on February 1st, 2013, the regulation establishes the requirements for the use of physical restraint and seclusion and the notification and data reporting requirements for the use of physical restraint and seclusion in districts, and does not prohibit the lawful exercise of law enforcement duties by sworn law enforcement officers. All school districts across the state are required to establish and implement policies and procedures regarding physical restraint and seclusion that do the following: ensure school personnel are aware of and parents are notified how to access the policies and procedures regarding physical restraint and seclusion. Require school personnel to be trained in accordance with the requirements outlined in Section 6 of the Administrative Regulation. Outlines procedures to be followed during and after each use of physical restraint or seclusion, including notice to parents, documentation of the event in the Student Information System, and a process for the parent or emancipated youth to request a debriefing session. It requires notification within 24 hours to the Kentucky Department of Education and local law enforcement in the event of death, substantial risk of death, extreme physical pain, protracted and obvious disfigurement or protracted loss or impairment of the function of a bodily member, organ, or mental faculty resulting from the use of physical restraint or seclusion. Outlines a procedure by which parents may submit a complaint regarding the physical restraint or seclusion of their child, which shall require the district and school to investigate the circumstances surrounding the physical restraint or seclusion, make written findings, and if appropriate, take corrective action. Outlines a procedure to regularly review data on physical restraint and seclusion usage and revise policies as needed. All school personnel shall be trained in state administrative regulations and school district policies and procedures regarding physical restraint and seclusion. All certified and non-certified school personnel shall be annually trained to use an array of positive behavioral supports and interventions to accomplish the following: increase appropriate student behaviors, decrease inappropriate or dangerous student behaviors, and respond to dangerous behavior. Establishing a core team. The regulation requires that a core team of selected school personnel will be designated to respond to dangerous behavior and to implement physical restraint if needed. This core team shall receive additional yearly training. All school personnel will receive annual written or electronic communication from the school identifying core team members in their school setting. Each school will work with their administrators and special education consultants to design specific plans to meet the needs of their building's population. This training is Safe Crisis Management, or SCM, that is offered annually to staff. Limitations on the use of seclusion. 704 KAR 7160 defines seclusion as the involuntary confinement of a student alone in a room or area from which the student is prevented from leaving, but does not mean classroom timeouts, supervised in-school detention, or out-of-school suspension. Seclusion may only be implemented in a public school or educational program under the following conditions: the student's behavior poses an imminent danger of physical harm to self or others, the student is visually monitored for the duration of the seclusion, the less restrictive interventions have been ineffective in stopping the imminent danger of physical harm to self or others, or school personnel implementing the seclusion are appropriately trained to use seclusion. Seclusion shall not be used as a punishment or discipline, to force compliance or to retaliate, as a substitute for appropriate educational or behavioral support, To prevent property damage in the absence of imminent danger of physical harm to self or others, as a routine school safety measure, as a convenience for staff, as a substitute for time out. As defined in 704 KAR 7160, timeout means a behavioral management technique that is part of an approved program, involves the monitored separation of the student in a non-locked setting, and is implemented for the purpose of calming. The use of seclusion shall end as soon as the student's behavior no longer poses an imminent danger of physical harm to self or others, or a medical condition occurs putting the student at risk of harm. A setting used for seclusion shall be free of objects and fixtures with which a student could inflict physical harm to self or others, provide school personnel a view of the student at all times, provide adequate lighting and ventilation, and have an unlocked and unobstructed door. Physical restraint is defined as the personal restriction that immobilizes or reduces the ability of a student to move their torso, arms, legs, or head freely, but does not include temporary touching or holding of the hand, wrist, arm, shoulder, or back for the purpose of encouraging a student to move voluntarily to a safe location, a behavioral intervention such as proximity control or verbal soothing used as a response to calm and comfort an upset student, less restrictive physical contact or redirection to promote student safety, or physical guidance or prompting when teaching a skill or redirecting the student's attention. Physical restraint shall not be used as a punishment or discipline, to force compliance or to retaliate, as a substitute for appropriate educational or behavioral support, to prevent property damage except as permitted under KRS Chapter 503, as a routine school safety measure, or as a convenience for staff. School personnel shall not impose the following on any student at any time: mechanical restraint, chemical restraint, aversive behavioral interventions, physical restraint that is life-threatening, prone or supine restraint, physical restraint if they know that physical restraint is contraindicated based on the student's disability, healthcare needs, or medical or psychiatric condition. Physical restraint may only be implemented in a public school or educational program when the student's behavior poses an imminent danger of physical harm to self or others, as permitted under these three Kentucky Revised Statutes. The physical restraint does not interfere with the student's ability to communicate in the student's primary language or mode of communication, unless the student uses sign language or an augmentative mode of communication as the student's primary mode of communication, and the implementer determines that freedom of the student's hands for brief periods during the restraint appears likely to result in physical harm to self or others. The student's physical and psychological well-being is monitored for the duration of the physical restraint. Less restrictive behavioral interventions have been ineffective in stopping the imminent danger of physical harm to self or others, except in the case of a clearly unavoidable emergency situation posing imminent danger of physical harm to self or others. School personnel implementing the physical restraint are appropriately trained, except to the extent necessary to prevent physical harm to self or others in clearly unavoidable emergency circumstances where other school personnel intervene and summon trained school personnel as soon as possible. Implementing a physical restraint, school personnel shall use only the amount of force reasonably believed to be necessary to protect the student or others from imminent danger of physical harm. Physical restraint shall end as soon as the following conditions occur: the student's behavior no longer poses an imminent danger of physical harm to self or others, or a medical condition occurs putting the student at risk of harm. The warning signs of students in emotional distress are uncontrollable crying or screaming, extreme withdrawal, irrational statements, urination, defecation, or vomiting. The warning signs of serious physical injury are as follows: complaints of pain, bleeding, complaints of severe pain with obvious reddening, swelling, or abrasions, signs of broken or dislocated joints and bones. And the warning signs of asphyxia are panting, shallow breaths, or hyperventilation, unconsciousness or unresponsiveness to regular verbal checks, or the darkening of skin around the mouth or nose and in hands or fingernails. All uses of physical restraint and seclusion shall be documented by a written record and must be maintained in the student's education record. Written record must be completed by the end of the next school day. Infinite Campus will serve as the student's education record. Each record of use of physical restraint or seclusion shall be informed by an interview with the student and parent notification. Physical restraint and seclusion form located in Infinite Campus will be used by Breckinridge County Public School core teams and staff using Safe Crisis Management. Staff trained in Safe Crisis Management will have additional training for completing the applicable paperwork. This completes the training. Please download the verification form, which can be found on the district website at www.brec.kyschools.us. Click the employment link on the left, Seclusion and Restraint Training, and you will find the sign-off form under Related Documents on the right-hand side. Please sign, then date, and return to the Breckinridge County Board of Education. Thank you.